November 2nd. I'm Rim.
And I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, with the upcoming U.S. midterm elections, we talk a little bit about politics.
Let's do this.
Today, I actually had some work to do.
Oh my God, because I didn't have work to do, and I left work early to go buy shit we desperately needed and did not have an opportunity to go buy.
Though, by having work to do, I ended up being in Mount Vernon today, and I ended up being in an area that is predominantly Hispanic. Now, the interesting thing is, I needed some food, so I just wander out. I'm looking for a deli or something. I see a deli. I just walk in, stand in line, get to the front. I go to order. Then I realize that I'm the only one in this place who speaks English.
Oh my God.
Everything's in Spanish. The menu's in Spanish on the wall. The owners and employees, none of them speak English at all.
You know, I haven't, taken a Spanish class since high school. High school, I took 2 years of Spanish. Middle school, I took 3 years. And since then, not so much. But I still find I can kind of read a Spanish newspaper, I guess like a Spanish elementary school kid, maybe. And I probably could order food in a Spanish restaurant. But yeah, that's pretty interesting there.
Yeah, well, it was interesting that no one spoke English at all, which is something I've never actually run into in this country before, where I went to a place of business and tried to conduct business, and I was unable to because the people owning the business did not speak my language.
Yeah, I mean, they gotta speak English. I mean, I've encountered people who can't speak English at all, but they're usually people directly from foreign countries, like vacationing someone or, someone from an older generation.
Well, I have a beef, though, before I get into what actually happened.
All right.
The sign outside said it was a deli. I went in because I wanted a sub. It wasn't a deli. They only had, tacos and burritos.
Awesome.
So, and I didn't want to walk out because that was awkward, even though it was awkward enough that everyone's just kind of staring at me. And I'm obviously this guy who doesn't speak the language, and I didn't want to leave because I thought that would be rude. So eventually it turns out one of the other customers spoke enough English to translate to the the proprietor that I wanted a chicken burrito.
Uh-huh.
Which in the end was really, really good and really, really big. And it was only like $3.
I imagine it would be.
It wasn't as good as the Cafe Maya, but it was $3. I pay more than that for a slice of pizza in Manhattan sometimes.
Great. All right.
But then, much more interestingly, I go to these two big hospitals to do a whole bunch of work. And
you catch any diseases?
I hope not.
Oh.
But though at one point I dropped a pen on the floor in one of these data closets, and the guy was like, I go to reach it, and the guy says, "Don't pick anything up off the floor. Here's a new pen."
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Don't touch the floor here. You'll get sick."
All right.
Wasn't the best hospital I was in.
Oh, okay.
Well, at least the first hospital. One was better. But the cool thing is, while I was at
I've never been in a not nice hospital. Like, I went to a hospital once that looked not nice on the outside. Like, outside the hospital, I was like, this looks like a shady hospital. But inside, it was a nice hospital.
Well, no, I mean,
I would have gone there.
It wasn't any dirtier than any other hospital that I've worked in. It just, no one had ever specifically warned me against touching the floor before. And I've been in operating rooms. And
Maybe that was just a scared dude. The kind of people who are afraid of germs all the time.
Or he might have just been making a joke.
Or maybe he's making a joke.
But the point is, while I was working, I met a cool guy who, we were making small talk while I'm doing my business, and he's showing me around and unlocking all these places I have to get into to do my business. And we're talking a bit about hobbies. And I mentioned, blah, 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 convention. Whenever I talk about my hobbies, most people in the world I interact with in my job do not understand geekery at all. So when I say, normally if I meet someone cool, I'll be like, yeah, I was just at an anime con, or yeah, I do a podcast. But to normal muggles, I say things like, yeah, I speak at Japanese.
Did you say muggles?
Yes, I said muggles. I speak at Japanese cultural or Japanese film conventions or Japanese film and animation things, and I do an internet radio show or something like that. But I mentioned blah 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 Japanese blah, and the guy's like, like Katsukan and Otakon, right? And all that. And we start talking. He's kind of an anime fan, and he wants to start a podcast.
What kind of other hobbies did he have?
We talked a bit. He's into computers. No, he's an IT guy. He knows a lot. He isn't so big in Linux, but he wants to be.
Mm-hmm. Where does he live?
Somewhere in the city.
Should have him
I'm not going to tell this guy's life story on the show. I just thought it was cool that perhaps for the first time in many years of employment, I met another geek in the course of my work.
Oh,
A geek who seemed to know what he was talking about technology. Because most of the people I end up meeting in my work don't really know much about what the job is they're supposed to be doing.
that's just what it is. Like, as these old people go out, we're on the edge. We're the young people coming in who know what we're talking about. And we just more of us got to get in there because
Yeah.
too many of us are knowing but not getting jobs. They're just being bums. I know a lot of people being bums.
Yeah, we do. We could call them out by name.
Yeah. Go get jobs so that we can infiltrate the workforce faster and get rid of the old people
More
faster.
importantly, to all of you out there who are friends of mine who are good at technology, particularly computers, I get a pile of money if you work for my company, and you also get a pile of money. And by a pile, I mean multiple thousands. So I want that money. That's all I got to say.
Rim, not yet wealthy enough to sate himself.
No. The thing is, I get almost everything I want out of life. I don't need much more money to live a perfect life. And if I didn't have my school debt, which is rapidly going away, I'd be living in luxury as far as I'm concerned.
Well, the thing is, I could always do with more money. But the thing is, to improve my life, I would need so much more money. Like it used to be,
Yeah.
I needed a house and a car. Well, now I have a house and a car. So how much money more would it take to significantly improve my life?
Yeah,
Probably it would take like $500,000 to buy a wicked house.
I mean, it's sad,
if I
but
don't get $500,000, I'm basically, it doesn't change my life at all.
the sad truth is that the next step to make us more happy in terms of, money and physical possessions and lifestyle would to be independently wealthy.
Yeah, got to remove the debt.
Or
somehow.
remove the job somehow.
Yeah, both.
Yeah. So we can't be happier physically unless we have independent wealth.
Or like Ferraris and mansions and shit.
Yeah.
But even then, that doesn't make me that much happier compared to how much money it costs.
You know what would make me the most happy is being independently wealthy and having all that free time
Yeah,
back.
I think the only real thing I could buy would be like vacations constantly. Just traveling around the world crazily.
Yeah, but I can't afford that with a job.
Yeah.
Well, no, I can afford it. I can't afford the time.
Yeah, that too.
I mean, Scott and I could right now just like go to the airport and fly to Greece.
And then we can get back too.
Yeah,
That's about it.
oh no,
It's like $1,000-something plane ticket.
yeah, we could live there for a while too, and we could pay off that debt pretty handily.
With Greek money?
I'm not saying move to Greece. I'm saying fly there, stay there a week, fly
okay.
back.
Okay. I thought we were going to say
mean,
we're
we could
going to work in Greece to pay off our American debt.
No. We just go on a 2-week vacation in Greece on like my credit card.
Do they use euros in Greece or something else?
They're part of the EU, I think.
All right, I got to go check on that. I'm pretty sure they do.
Yeah, I got to admit, I haven't been paying attention to modern European politics.
It's so weird. It's like I know all about old Greece. Well, relatively. I know a lot
Oh,
about
really?
old- yeah.
Shall we have quiz time with Rim and Scott?
No.
Because I just
But
read.
I know more about old Greece, and I know nothing about new Greece. I know nothing about what Greece is like right now at all.
Where did Alexander the Great come from?
Greece.
No. He came from a Greek-ish nation to the north of Greece.
Whatever.
Who was his dad?
Rim the not so great.
Anyway, was Archimedes Greek?
He had a principle.
Okay. It's funny because yesterday I read a long Wikipedia on something in Greece, and now Greece is coming up a lot in our lives.
Uh-oh. Better get some
What?
sandwiches
Sandwiches, not Greek fire.
of the gyro nature.
You could have said Greek fire, but you said sandwich.
Fine, Damascus steel.
Okay, I'm down with that.
All right.
Anyway, that was a crazy tangent. You got some
Do you have
news.
news? I got some great news.
I got some interesting news.
All right, well, our favorite professional sport, team sport, is ice hockey. And, well, ice hockey's not doing so well. I mean, it's not as popular as any other professional sport in the country. I mean, pretty much you got football at the top, then you got your basketballs and your baseballs and all that stuff.
Granted, baseball seems to be dropping like a rock, but that's...
You got your NASCARs doing pretty well, but, of all of them, NHL not doing so well.
Well-
The only things doing worse than the NHL are like, women. I mean, golf is doing better than the NHL.
But I mean, think about it
At least
in
men's
these
golf.
terms. This is what I really think differentiates hockey from many other professional sports in the U.S. and Canada, is that in every other sport, it seems many of the players do it more for the money than for the love of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And hockey players, when there's no hockey or something happens or they can't play their hockey, they just go play hockey somewhere else, even if they don't get paid.
That's something I always liked about hockey is I asked my dad once, hey, wait a minute, those NHL guys, when there was that strike, all right, why did they go and play in Europe? It's like they're hockey players. They just want to play hockey. And then when the hockey players are in the Olympics, there's the Olympic break and they go play in the Olympics. And I'm like, why would you try hard in the Olympics? Wouldn't you just get tired out and then not be able to play in the Stanley Cup? He's like, they're crazy hockey players. They just want to play hockey.
Yeah, but I mean, while hockey isn't doing well in terms of making a lot of profit, it's doing well in that it supports itself and all the people who like hockey can get their hockey.
Yep. Anyway, because NHL obviously knows it's having problems. Outside of the big teams that are really popular, a lot of the other teams, not too many people care about at all, and they're just basically fodder for the real teams, quote, real teams. So, what have they done? Something that is pure genius that I've been begging every single sport that exists to do. And I think Formula One, the sport that should do it the most, is going to be the last one to do it. But regardless, if you go to video.google.com/nhl.html, you can watch hockey for free.
Now,
the NHL pretty much said all the hockey videos on Google Video are awesome. You can watch the Rangers game from 2 or 3 days ago on Google Video just right off of MSG.
Now, the only reason I don't watch a lot of hockey is that I really don't like television, and it's not worth the money to have it, even if it were just a hockey machine.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. We could get cable television, right? What would we watch on cable television?
Hockey.
We would watch hockey. I might watch an F1 race, and I might watch, I don't even know if I'd watch the Super Bowl if my Giants weren't in it.
I might watch, Battlestar Galactica. The problem is,
I wouldn't.
While I would watch all that stuff, I would totally TiVo it and watch it later.
And the other
without
thing is, most
commercials.
of those things, like Simpsons, South Park, Futurama, all that shit, we Netflix that. We don't need a TV for that. And Netflix is way cheaper.
Yeah, because
so we would be paying, what was it, like $40 a month?
More than that.
Yeah, just to watch hockey games.
Which wouldn't be that bad, except that also I don't have that much time, and I don't
really have time for it, and there's
not
commercials.
All the games, yeah.
And hockey games are only once every 3 days.
So now I can just go to Google, pick the hockey game I wanted to watch, and watch it.
Yes, I don't do work at work. Whenever there's a new Rangers game, I'll just watch yesterday's hockey game. Why not? It's free. This is awesome, and I think what they have to do now, this is a huge step for the NHL, because now it's not popular, but all internet people might get into it from watching these videos for free. What they've got to do is they got to take it to the next level. They have to really not let up and keep pushing, the fact that this web page exists and that you can watch this stuff for free to get people to watch it. Like,
here's
hey,
what I would do if I were
watch
them.
hockey for free. Go, go, go.
I would, make forever hockey games more than, I'd say, 24 hours, 48 hours, older hockey games.
Oh, there's older hockey games on here, newer games.
No. I'm saying what I would do. I'd make all the non-live hockey free to watch, and it'd be awesome. I'd have a service where you could pay to see the games live.
I would pay $5 a year.
You just pay. No, you just pay per.
$10.
I'd even make it. You just pay per game, or get a lifetime thing or yearly thing, whatever. The numbers don't matter. The point is, you always make the old ones free because those are nothing but promotion. People who actually get into hockey will probably want to see the games live, and they'd probably be willing to pay a small amount. Couple that with advertising targeted at geeks and nerds, because I gotta say, a lot of geeks and nerds are into hockey in proportion to geeks and nerds who are into other sports.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that if they try really hard, because other sports are pretty much neglecting the internet. If you want to watch baseball on the internet, you got to pay a fuck ton of money. It's not worth it. Football, basically non-existent on the internet. You can't watch football on the internet.
You can't watch 10 footballs.
Yeah. Basketball, not on the internet. Hockey, now, is all on the internet. You can watch all the games after they're done being played on Google Video for free, legally, sponsored by the NHL.
Now, you know what else they need to add? They got to add a fight video.
The thing is, the NHL, if they ever, promote their fighting, that doesn't work because then they get this huge backlash.
You know what? The backlash is only from non-hockey fans.
I know, but they can't do it even though they want to real bad.
Yeah, they could, because then it creates this sort of, all the people who complain about the fighting just make the people who are interested more interested.
I know, but that's how it goes. Anyway,
Yeah.
If the NHL just keeps pushing it, I think they definitely become popular again and awesome. And even if they don't, I can watch hockey now. If I'm bored and I got nothing to do, hockey game.
So a while ago, there was a study, a poll that was going around, and a lot of people were quoting it on the internet. It's kind of an old poll, and it's been done a few times, and it basically said that 90% of Americans believe in God. And a lot of people were trying to use this as evidence in various arguments and debates all over the internet, most notably on FARC.
So do we know how this poll worked or anything?
Oh, well, the poll wasn't that good. Recently, a real Harris poll that went much more in-depth came out, and very similar polls.
If you don't know, Harris is a really, really reliable and well-done polling company.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there have been other studies, and what they discovered is that actually 42% of Americans are not certain that there is a God. They believe kind of, but they will not commit to being absolutely certain that there is a God.
Mm-hmm.
Which is significantly different than saying that 90% of Americans believe in God. Now, I'm not really going anywhere with this other than that there are a lot of interesting correlations between...
Read the part that I want you to read.
All right, one thing is that very many Jews, or people who claim to be Jews, do not actually believe in God.
Yep. What was the percentages?
Let's see, only 76% of Protestants, 64% of Catholics, and 30% of Jews are certain that there is a God.
Now, I want to point out that Jewish culture, especially, the United States mostly, but Jewish culture and the way Jewish people are, mostly Jewish families, Jewish mothers, they really stress education a lot. A whole lot.
Funny you mention that, because apparently there's a direct and clear negative correlation between level of education and belief in God.
And that is why a lot of Jews, like I identify myself as Jewish-ish, I guess.
Jewish-ish?
Kinda.
Did you call yourself an open source Joogle a while ago?
Yeah, you can call it whatever the hell you want. The point is, Jewish don't believe in God. A lot of rabbis don't even believe in God. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, well, it's more of a culture. We get into that, but that's not the point of this.
If you want to know a lot about it, you can read Douglas Rushkoff's book, Nothing Sacred.
Anyway.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of interesting things. Women are slightly more likely than men to believe in God. Blacks are super more likely than whites to believe in God. So are Hispanics, but not as much as blacks. Republicans are more likely to believe in God than Democrats. The education thing. And then they ask a whole bunch of other interesting questions like, do you believe that all religious people worship the same God? Or does God actually control events on Earth? And all sorts of things. Now, here's an interesting one. Only 29% of people believe that God has an effect on the Earth.
Only 29%, you say?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, gotta ask people if they allow their belief or disbelief in God to affect their decisions in life.
A question like that's not good for a poll because that's an internal subjective question. They're asking very direct questions like, is God male or female?
What do people say to that?
Well, 36%.
There was a big controversy, actually, because I went to this Orthodox...
It's 50-50. It's 50-50 between God is male and God is neither male nor female. 10% say God is both, and 1% say God is a woman.
Only 1% say God's a woman?
Well, remember, most people in this country, if they have a religion, have a monotheistic religion that is probably not believing in some sort of earth spirit.
Yeah.
Except for, Wiccans and all them, but they weren't heavily represented. Or if they were, they didn't say that God was female.
Yeah, see, one of the key tenets of Judaism is iconoclasm. You're not supposed to, iconify anything at all. So there was one temple I went to once where they said this. They had this song or whatever you want to call it, and in the song, there were some words that were like, God has black hair and he's a man. It was like one sentence, and it was a big controversy. So
okay,
it just reminded me of that.
Well, the only other
talking about Jewishness.
The only other interesting thing, you're talking about Jewishness. I was going on a different tack, and
Jewishness. I'm Jewish. That's all I could talk about.
Okay.
Not really.
The interesting thing they talk about at the end is they're trying to figure out whether or not belief in God is actually declining or not. And the reason it's a difficult question to answer is because in the past, a lot of these polls were conducted over the phone, and now many polls like this are conducted over the internet. And it turns out that a lot of studies have shown that when given a poll that is by mail or over the internet, people are much more likely to tell the truth when they are asked about something that may be socially undesirable. So if you call someone and ask them if they believe in God, even if they don't, they're much more likely to say yes because they're afraid of stigma from saying no, because they're talking to an actual person. But if they're responding to a machine, they're much more likely to tell the truth about their actual beliefs.
But isn't there also a problem of if you're calling people on the phone, you're only polling the subset of people who have home phones, which is not us. And when you're doing the internet, you're doing the subset of people who have internet connections and take polls on the internet.
Well,
which is us.
the way Harris does it, they have a very strict methodology that basically comes up with very statistically significant results.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm just pointing that out.
Oh yeah, it's just telephone polls are largely becoming irrelevant because the only people who have telephones and are willing to do polls tend to be busybodies.
Yeah, busybodies. Do they believe in God?
Things of the day. I've got a very relevant thing of the day.
All right, my thing is not relevant, so I'll go first.
But mine's very relevant. I want to do it.
That's why you do it second.
No, because it's not actually relevant. You know what my thing of the day is. That's why there's a joke.
Okay, well, go for it then.
Someone just put up this video of a banana spider who has found a grub in his web. And he goes over and he eats it. And I just thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I was watching the video and I saw the grub in the web. And I was like, where's the spider? Where is the spider? And then the spider comes and it's like, aha!
That is the spider.
That is the spider.
There's the spider.
All right. Is that it?
That's it. Just watch this video. It's kind of cool.
Okay, I guess if you're not getting enough Discovery Channel, you can watch Rooms.
If you want to watch a really big spider eat a really little yellow grub.
So, my Google video is titled Almost Terrible Workday. And in the video, they say, like, this guy's the luckiest store clerk ever. I don't think he's a lucky store clerk, because if he was lucky, this wouldn't have happened to him.
No, because that was an awesome story.
It is an awesome story, but you're not the luckiest.
No, the luckiest would be if, right after it happened, a lottery ticket fell out of it and landed in his pocket, and then, I don't know, Jesus and Moses and Hanukkah Harry came down and gave him a present.
What's the Jewish today? No more Jew talk.
You're the one who started it.
I know. I'm going to stop it, too.
I'll start saying random Yiddish words if you don't stop.
So you're watching this video, and it's very
shit
obviously a music store. You can see some amps, and you can see a keyboard, and there's a rack of sheet music to buy. God.
Okay, go.
And on the right side, there's a guy sitting behind the counter, and I think he's browsing the web on that computer there. You know, he's doing something. So you're watching, and the guy's sitting there. He's typing. He's doing something. All of a sudden, like out of nowhere. Freaking, he picks his head up because he hears a noise, and he looks to the back of the store. But you think, oh, he's looking to the back of the store because there's a guy in the back of the store he's looking at. Then I don't know if a car hits the store, or maybe just the wall collapses for no reason, or maybe they hung too much shit on the wall. But the wall behind him just smashes right in on him. And I think the reason they say he's real lucky is it totally misses him.
Yeah, the whole area is completely crushed except for this tiny area right around where he's sitting.
Yeah, basically, it's like it's a lot like those Looney Tunes where like there's a hole in the wall and the wall falls down and Bugs Bunny ends up standing where the hole was.
After it happens, the guy's just like, what the fuck?
He freaks out and he gets up and he starts running around doing whatever, that you would do if the entire wall of your store fell in on you. But yeah, the one spot sitting at the desk is where he didn't get hurt. If he was like not browsing the web, he would have been totally crushed by the wall. Probably had to go to the hospital with some serious injuries.
All right. So we were inspired to do tonight's show, mostly due to the fact that back in the day, a lot of newspapers and a lot of publications would, around election times, come straight out and not only have opinions that were actually the opinion of the newspaper, but they would officially endorse candidates in elections.
Yeah, nowadays, all the newspapers and TV stations, they say, the opinions stated here are solely those of the people on the show and are not the opinion of the network at all.
I like the idea of a newspaper saying, you know what? We're backing so-and-so because blah, and you can suck it. This is our opinion. If you don't like it, well, suck it.
Yeah, nowadays, you get newspapers. The editor-in-chief will write an article saying, this guy is great, and some other people write op-eds about so-and-so is great, and someone will write a letter to the editor saying so-and-so is great, but it's only in this op-ed section. And the rest of the newspaper while it might obviously be slanted, I mean, everyone knows the New York Post is totally right wing. And everyone knows the New York Times is slightly left-wing, if not a lot more than that. And everyone knows that those newspapers with just the red ink and the black ink are totally socialist.
The socialist worker, the communist worker,
Yeah, I know, at least those...
You know what it is?
At least those newspapers have the balls to say they're socialist.
The piece of paper with a bunch of red ink that some hippie guy with dreadlocks tries to shove into your hands.
What's that newspaper that's in New York? The Epoch whatever?
I don't know.
The one for the
I just remember the one day at RIT
people.
where I was walking to class and I was dressed up real nice because I was doing something that day.
Mm-hmm.
And one of these hippies with the socialist club on campus, which was probably the smallest, saddest club on the campus.
Even though it was pretty vocal.
Yeah, they were real loud, but there weren't many of them.
Nope.
And he's in the middle of the quarter mile yelling and screaming and handing out the socialist worker. And he's like, the war in Iraq, blah, blah, blah. Because this is before the war in Iraq happened, back before everything went to shit. And I was against the war. I was against the war from the start. But when this guy comes up to me and he's like, the war's about oil, blah, 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 can't blah, blah, blah. I was just like, I'm for the war. And he's like, what? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, because it'll probably make oil prices go down. And the guy just exploded. And then he every point he made, I just made the stupidest, simplest counterpoint I could, even when it was something I totally disagreed with. And he couldn't deal with it. He's just yelling and yelling and yelling and yelling and getting red at the face, and I just laughed and walked away. It was the best thing ever.
I would have been like, I'm for the war just because I'm against you.
No,
I was against the war, but because you're also against the war, and I really don't want to end up a dirty hippie like you,
like
you
at one
totally
point,
changed my mind.
At one point, I was like, my dad works in the arms industry. I'm going to get a lot of money if this war happens.
Oh, that's great.
This war is paying for my college.
Awesome.
I mean, he was so mad. It was great every time. And a couple times I'd see him on campus, and he'd see me, and he'd narrow his eyes in that Newman's.
He remembered you.
He did. Well, I kind of stand out.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, those guys were fun, though.
Yeah. So, inspired by that, Geeknights is going to officially endorse some candidates. However, not many, because we don't like most of the people running in the United States elections.
No, we don't. And we're only pretty much the elections this, what's a week from, it's next Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's only New York State people we have to vote for, and our local representatives. And we have, I think, one person in the federal House of Representatives to vote for, and
now,
that's it.
To all of our non-U.S. listeners, I promise we'll keep this interesting and not go into boring detail about things you don't care about.
Because, I mean, even people in the U.S., if you don't live in New York and don't have the same candidates as we do, it's not going to be interesting to you at all. What do you care who our governor is? They're not governing you if you live in California. You have the governor or whatever.
I like the governor.
He's all right, but he's not as bad as some people make him out to be, at least.
No, not at all. I'm a supporter of the governor because while I do disagree with him on points, he's very much a Republican like the old Newt Gingrich days, which, while not great, are a lot better than the current Republican days.
I don't know enough about him to say anymore, but yeah. Anyway.
All right.
So we're going to talk about the New York candidates, but we're still going to try to make it entertaining.
Yeah. Real quick, let's just get the names out of people we officially want to endorse as, I guess, journalists.
All right.
You know what? I'll start because I got the easiest one. This is probably the only candidate I'm actually behind.
Mm-hmm.
Elliot Spitzer and David Patterson are running for office.
Governor and lieutenant governor, respectively.
And not only am I endorsing them, but they have been nominated by more than one party. They're running as Democrats, but they're also running as the Independence Party, which is a party that I am pretty much... It's the political party in America founded by a guy who gave a lot of money to RIT, among other things.
Oh, I guess he got his money's worth. He convinced us.
The party is the closest thing to my beliefs as to how government should be run of any party in the United States, far and away. I mean, I'm very libertarian, but I am not a member of the Libertarian Party.
Not at all.
Because they do not agree. I do not agree with them on many points.
Many points.
And this party is the closest thing to what I believe politically of anything. Not to say that I agree with them 100%, because I certainly don't. But that's the closest thing. And because Elliot Spitzer and David Patterson are running, in America, you can be nominated by as many parties as parties will nominate
like,
you.
let's say me and Rim started the Geeknights political party, right? And since we're a really small political party, we might not have a person in every district. Let's say we're only a New York political party, right? New York has, I don't know how many districts, a whole lot of districts of voting. let's say we don't have a candidate for every single district of New York. Well, in those districts, we can either have a blank spot on the ballot, or we can endorse, say, the Republican candidate. Then people have a choice. They can vote for the candidate on the Republican line, or they can vote for the candidate on the Geeknights party line.
Yeah. Now, the benefit of this is in America, if you get a certain percentage of the vote, then you are eligible for money from the government in the next set of elections.
Yeah, so let's say...
You also basically get recognized as a real political party.
Yeah, so let's say Joe Blow is running for governor, and we don't have a candidate for governor in our shitty little party. So we endorse Joe Blow. And Joe Blow wins because enough people vote for him. But 25% of the people who voted for Joe Blow voted for him as a Geeknights party member and not as a Republican. We get mad monies, yo. It's awesome.
Yeah. So Elliot Spitzer and David Patterson are running on the Democratic Party and the Independence Party. So I officially endorse voting for these two men on the Independence Party line,
And
which
I
in New York
agree.
State is column C on the ballot.
I just want to talk about Elliot Spitzer for like a minute.
All right.
Is that basically Elliot Spitzer was, until recent, well, he still is, the Attorney General of New York State. And as Attorney General, he has done many things that are awesome. He basically goes after all the people I think are assholes and tries to sue them as the state. He sued a bunch of evil insurance guys. He sued spammers. He sued spyware guys. All sorts of awesomeness. And that's how I found out about him, and he's way cool for it. And I look at what he stands for, and most of it's awesome. And, a lot of people say, he's just doing that kind of stuff to get people to like him.
You know what? If someone does good things because they want to be liked, and then they keep doing good things because they keep wanting to be liked.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is it doesn't matter his intent. He's doing what I want, and he's probably going to continue to do what I want. I don't care if his intent is, because the result will be pleasing to me. And the only thing I disagree with Elliot Spitzer on is he is anti, violent video game. And while I don't want to vote for someone who's anti-violent video game, I think it'll be enough to just write him a letter, because if I agree with him on almost everything else, I can let one thing slide.
Yeah, because it's
just
not like video
voice my
games will be
discontent.
banned. That's
Yeah,
not going to happen.
And it's not like if the other candidate isn't exactly pro-violent video game. So
We really need a pro-violent video game candidate.
yeah, dude, the candidate goes up and he's like, I think video games need to be gorier and bloodier with more sex and more guts. I got the name of the party already. The Not Enough Gibbs. Oh, I got to say this right now. I'm looking at the list of parties in New York State.
Now, what I just want to, I know what Scott's going to say, but I want to jump in real quick and point out that in America, the name of your political party usually has absolutely fuck all to do with what your party stands for.
Yeah, for example, the Constitution Party.
Oh, God, don't,
The Constitution Party has nothing to do with
Yes.
the Constitution.
The Constitution Party wants, quote, they're conservative, blah, blah, blah. They want to bring the, quote, biblical foundations of American jurisprudence.
Yeah, they should be the Bible Party, but no, they are the Constitution Party. Why they call themselves that, I don't know. But anyway, looking at the list of New York State parties, there's Republican, Democratic, Independents, Working Families. Working Families make sense. Libertarian, Green, Socialist Workers, Socialist Equality. All right. There's one party that catches my eye, and the abbreviation for the party is RTH. And it says here on the right side, what does RTH stand for? It stands for Rent is Too High. If you think rent is too high, you can vote for Jimmy McMillan for New York State governor. I don't think he's going to win because, you know what? My rent isn't too high.
Maybe I'll vote for him.
I don't know. No, I think Elliot Spitzer is better.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to have lower rent, but I'm not going to vote for a guy whose only political stance is rent is too high.
Now, the sad truth is, I hate to say it, but other than maybe Kinky Friedman in Texas just because he's hilarious, there's no one I support anywhere. There's no one else I could endorse. I could anti-endorse a bunch of people, but that list is long.
Yeah, there's only one person I want to specifically anti-endorse, and this is our person who is the representative of, us in New York, where we live in New York State, in the Federal House of Representatives, and that is Sue Kelly. I looked back in the day when I moved to Beacon at, the voting record of all my Congress people and senators. And Sue Kelly, everything she voted on, like every single thing, I went looking at all the bills in the House of Representatives of the federal government of the United States. She voted the opposite of what I would have voted on every single bill. Every single one. I would look at it and I would say, yes, Sue Kelly voted no. No, Sue Kelly voted yes. Every last one. Now, the Independence Party is supporting her, and so is the Conservative Party and the Republican Party, but goddamn, there's no way I'm voting for someone who votes the opposite of the way I do.
Yeah.
The Democrat running is John Hall, and I'll probably end up voting for him because he's the only other choice. But even if I disagree with him on a lot of things, which I'm sure I do, I know that he'll vote differently from the Republican Sue Kelly.
Well,
if he votes differently just once, I'll agree with him more than I agree with Sue Kelly.
I spoke with John Hall very briefly a while ago.
Really?
Because he was around, and I ran into a whole bunch of candidates over the past month just around New York City and in various places doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran into John Hall up here when he was doing something one day, and he seems like an unassuming guy.
Yeah.
One of his platforms seems to be, it was something to the effect of make the Bush administration accountable for what it's done, which is definitely vague and not actually going to happen, but
yeah,
this is definitely a lesser of two evils situation.
Yeah, I don't know about John Hall, but I do know I don't like Sue Kelly based solely on her voting
John
record.
Hall votes for one thing differently from the way Sue Kelly would if I consider it a victory.
That's what I'm saying, is Sue, she... Every single thing she voted the way I disagree with. Every last one.
So, for all of you foreign listeners, American elections are really kind of silly.
Yeah.
We don't have runoffs or anything good. We don't have. It's just a winner take all.
The big elections aren't so silly because they get a lot of attention. But everything that's not big in the public eye, the big elections, is all really silly and kind of fun. And that's where the democratic process actually works.
Yeah, except that no one votes.
I know. If more people voted, it would work. But
no, because no one cares.
There's 29 districts in New York. That's interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. I mean, in general, we could talk a bit about our actual political leanings.
I guess.
Or we could just go to bed and start fresh next week. Because once again, we got a crazy weekend coming up.
Yeah. I don't know who I'm going to vote for our senator, though.
You know what? I hate to say it, but I'm pretty much not going to vote at all on many of the positions that I can vote on because I simply don't agree with any of the candidates or can't find enough actual information about them. Or I really don't care because none of them stand for me at all, so it doesn't matter which one gets elected. I'm not going to endorse one with a vote.
Yeah,
I'm not going to lend legitimacy to that election.
I think there's like 3 positions where I'm just not going to vote.
Because here's the cool thing. One of the things that a lot of members of the Independence Party are really pushing is that they want there to be, very literally, a none-of-the-above option, where if you go and vote, you can say, I do not want any of these people. And if that wins, then you have to do something to the election.
To make a new election where none of the existing candidates can run again.
Yeah, something like that.
That would be the way.
I mean, you'd have to think out all the details of that. But in general, a lot of people say, you should vote no matter what. But I say, if you really don't agree with any of the candidates, don't vote for the lesser of two evils. Just don't vote. Because not voting does say something. It says you either don't care or aren't represented. And the less people vote, the less legitimacy there is around the voting process, which might force some people to take action.
Yes, that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to go in, and the people I want, I'm going to vote for. And when there's no one to choose from, I just won't vote in that column for any of those people. And then, they'll see that, though. They'll freaking see that, there was someone who went in and specifically voted for X, Y, and Z, but didn't vote for any of the people for the position of comptroller because they all suck.
Unless we use debold machines.
Oh, pund. Yeah. The other thing is that in the United States, when you go in to vote, at the top of the voting machine on the ballot, there are questions you can vote for.
Well, referendums. Scott, a little while ago, was like, we should talk about the questions. I was like, what? The fuck are you talking about?
They phrase them as questions. It's like, do you want, this to go into effect? Or do you think that, this is right? Yes or no? And they're all yes or no.
The problem, it varies state by state and city by city how these things work. Because in a lot of places, referendums are non-binding. They're basically just a poll.
Yeah. But I always, even if there's no one on the ballot I want to vote for, I will always go in and answer the questions because, if you there's a little piece of paper you can pick up that gives you the full details of what you're exactly doing with the questions. And I will always have an opinion, yes or no. And that's where I can vote directly, representing myself without a person in between.
I'm generally more in favor of a more representative government, and I generally dislike the idea of referendums.
Don't move to Oregon.
Except on issues. I know about Oregon.
Yeah.
Except on issues where it really matters or it really should be that way, which aren't many. I mean, I'm of the mind that people should work with their state legislature for local issues or their local government and vote and however in that, and the local government represents them.
Mm-hmm.
They elect representatives to the United States Federal House of Representatives, which represent them, the people, to the federal government. The House of Representatives, or the state legislature or someone, should then choose a senator. Though it could be okay if states have people choose them like they do now. But the senators should be the representatives of the state to the federal government. The senators should not be accountable to the people of the state. They should be accountable to the state legislature like they used to be.
Yeah, it is a little bit that way. I mean, if you send a letter to your senator, you're almost always going to get some crap form letter back.
Yeah, but the thing is...
But if you send a letter to your representative, it's a good chance they'll actually reply to you, kind of.
Well, the thing is, senators are a little more high profile, so as a result, there's a slightly lower incumbency rate there. So as a result, you have a lot of senators who do things in their home states that don't need to be done just to generate awareness to get votes, when they should be working on actual real government business that doesn't involve their home state so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my view is actually a lot more complicated than that, but I would need a whole show just to lay the basics of what I believe.
Anyway, that's who Geeknights is voting for. If you live where we live, we hope you vote the same way.
Elliot Spitzer is my man. That's all I can say.
Yeah, but vote however you want. We're not going to tell you.
No, I'm telling you straight up. Vote for Elliot Spitzer.
I'm telling you, I would like it if you voted for Elliot Spitzer.
Elliot Spitzer?
I am not going to hate you if you don't.
Oh?
No.
Oh, okay.
I would just think you're stupid. Lol.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.